Welcome to Accounting Life with Jotham Ty, a space where we'll talk about anything and everything surrounding the people that grind through your month-end accounting close.
Hi, everyone. Today's episode is The Importance of Heart in Accounting. Our guest today is Tara McDonough, executive coach, business consultant, and former CFO and controller. On this episode, we talk about the importance of heart in accounting, how heart comes into play in business, and how to bring more of yourself into your work. Now, I'll hand it over to our host, Gapify CEO, Jotham Ty.
Hey, Tara, how's it going? Thanks for joining us on today's show.
Hey, Jotham, thanks so much for having me. I'm stoked to be here.
Same here. Well, you and I have known each other for quite some time, and our experience working together has been with numbers, but I'm really excited to talk about something on the other side of technical and numbers and math, and speak to something that I think is an important element to the success of an accounting team, which is this concept of heart. And given your background now, I know you've moved on from accounting and have a new trade. I was really eager to have this conversation with you and really kind of expand on this again important concept. So thanks for being here again, Tara. That was a long-winded way of me saying thank you for joining us on today's show.
Thank you. Such an important topic and not discussed enough.
Absolutely. And I hope this podcast is not only a way for professionals to grow from a technical perspective. We have guests that come in and talk about how to be a controller or chief accounting officer, but I think this quality is so important for that type of growth as well. So just to dive right in, and I think that the best place to start is just, when we talk about heart and numbers as the theme of this episode, how would you define heart specifically? Because I know that could be, of course, it's abstract concept, can mean a lot of things, but how would you personally define it, Tara?
Yeah, especially as it relates to accounting. I mean, I think in a lot of ways, accounting is the heart of a company. Recording all the transactions, everything that's happened, the basis for future, for forecasting, for decisions, for business decisions, really everything runs through accounting. So that's in one way. And then another way is kind of the heart of the matter. Our objective in accounting is to record transactions timely and accurately, kind of within materiality, and materiality and, the dynamic information is becoming more and more challenging. And then specifically thinking about, the what and the how. So the what is the numbers and the output, and then the how is more where it would be great to focus today to just most effectively get to the what. And so that part for focus there is the inputs to our financials and our business processes is information. And so information, we have our automated solutions like Gapify, and we're, moving towards that way. And then there's the human element. So, whether it's accruals, working with legal, making sure we have all the vendors, marketing, HR, payroll, making sure we're capturing all of our expenses and that they're appropriately stated, engineering, software cap, sales, revenue, commission. A lot of that is through conversation and communication and connection. And it's a question of, many times, our counterparts, our cross-functional partners, don't necessarily understand exactly why and what information we need. And so that's why it's really important to, really be able to connect with them as people, communicate.
Well, I think you hit on some amazing points there. And I love specifically just thinking about the evolution of where we are now with the profession. So, when I first started my career, it was, there's minimal automation solutions, right? So we were mainly responsible for crunching the numbers, staying in our cubes with our plants, just processing on our own. Well, now that technology can do a lot of that mechanical work, there's more onus on us to actually develop relationships and work with the different cross-functional partners that you mentioned, like the marketing, like what kind of events are you doing? And you're really building relationships. And so you can't really take that kind of dry transactional stereotype that I think a lot of us, especially the older accountants like me are known for. And so I think that's where like the value of heart like really comes into play, right?
Absolutely. I'm thinking too about estimates and like the move to principles based, also like with revenue and like more focused on like the substance. What is the substance of the transaction as opposed to just what the paper says, the intent?
Right, right. And it's not just about like applying guidance. And yeah, there's the interpretations now, right? So there's a need to better understand like the principles around your transactions. And when you're in the process of doing that, you need to talk to people, you need to engage people.
And also your external providers, right? Like your auditors, for example, right? I mean, and now with the different firms, as it's kind of come, they, it depends on who your auditor is for some of the conclusions. So the relationship with the auditor and the partner in the office, all of that affects the results.
Yeah, and I'm seeing this more, and I'd love to hear your thoughts too, because I know you work with a lot of different companies as well. But I almost am sensing this kind of evolution where reviews, and in the context of evaluating performance, it's no longer like how many journal entries that you post over the year. I'm hearing more from leaders that part of the criteria for evaluating your accounting team's progress and performance is how well you can partner with others. Is that something that you're seeing in the market as well?
100%, absolutely. And it is, and I think also on the controller podcast that you had, I heard them also talk a lot about cross-functional, and also, cross-functional as well as, being able to problem solve collaboratively, because information is changing so fast. We're in such a dynamic environment that we've got to be able to flex and pivot and work together to get to joint solutions that achieve everyone's objectives.
Yeah, and it, again goes back to, I think it connects very nicely into the previous point about technology. If technology is taking in all that time to process transactions mechanically, then you are a human now responsible for leveraging the time that you have in your seat as a senior accountant or accounting manager to problem solve, to work with different people. So it's not like heart is just like a squishy thing that gets thrown around that feels nice to have. It's like an absolute necessity to perform your job properly. Isn't that a good way of putting it?
Absolutely. And as we automate and we increase our efficiency, everything gets better and better. It's like more precise, more optimized. And as humans, we're expected to be optimized and human at a higher level, which is, heart and judgment and flexibility kind of differentiates us from the machine. So
I think conceptually, and I think our audience would agree with this, like conceptually, I think we're in alignment that this is, heart is an important part of, one's job as an accountant. And, as I think about my own experience and history with like high performing accounting teams, I think of one specifically. I'm going to give a shout out to like Atlassian back in 2016 or 17, because I was fortunate enough to help them with their IPO. Their leaders just really set like good values at the top, and that cascaded down to the accounting team, and the level of like just authenticity, Tara, that there was with partnering on different growth projects. It was such a harmony of like talent and cross-functional like partnership, and it's just really special when you see in action. So I want to ask you, Tara, have you seen examples like that as well, like recently in your career?
Yeah, I would say first, it's rare. I think we've seen a lot of, and accountability, been part of maybe some, driving, pushing, those external deadlines, that, getting ready for an IPO or, a transaction, Q's case. But I think I've seen it within teams, and we've been working together. I think I've seen it at Gapify actually, and I think you really hit on it when you said it was from the leadership. It was all that that we learned in SOX with internal controls and entity level controls and tone from the top. And it's this intangible, right? Like when we think of an intangible asset, it has so much value, and it's hard. I mean, it's kind of impossible to quantify, but you feel it. And the human part of us, because we are humans, we aren't just these, neck up machines. We feel it, we see it, we watch what, the folks above us, are doing. And it's, I think that's one of the keys, really, is putting in the hard work at the top.
It's so interesting that top down as a SOX concept and just as an internal controls framework is even applicable to what we're talking about, like here with culture and heart. And yeah, I definitely try to do my part here at Gapify to instill the notion that in our work and our day-to-day partnering with customers, investors, advisors, each other, that's something we need to be mindful about. And I think maybe I am more aware of that because I do come from an environment, Tara, that wasn't always like that. And when I first went into audit, and first of all, the nature of audit itself, right? It's got the transactional kind of like orientation to it. Like, hey, I'm going to come in like at the end of the year, ask for stuff, try to get it as quickly as possible because I need to do the work. And then I'm just going to report my findings and then I'm off to the next one. So like, I kind of understand and know the environment where, it's purely transactional, and, that just doesn't seem like the best way to run a business. So that's why I think it's such an important like value for us here at Gapify.
Yeah, and it's amazing to see, we talk about this, and it's not easy. That's the other thing, it's easy to talk about, but in practice, when there are challenges and there are expectations, and to really, and I guess what I appreciate and what I see is taking the time to pause and really think about the how. Like, how do we want to do this?
Absolutely. And that's a great segue to, as we wrap up here, like some just questions, or actually I should say tips and advice for people who are looking to develop this notion of heart in their day-to-day. And I recall a couple episodes ago we had Carla Harris, who's an amazing figure and Morgan Stanley, and very strong and author of also some leadership books. So I asked her, like, how can someone be more authentic and genuine? And what the response I gave her, and I'd love to hear some other examples from you, Tara, was you're just being yourself, right? Just being comfortable being yourself. And, of course, like, I'm not going to be the, there are parts of like my personality that I need to be mindful about, but ultimately, if I'm comfortable, like being who I am, I think that's a good starting point. But I'd love to hear from you, like, what are some other good ways to, for you to not be transactional, to, be more relationship oriented? Any tips I think would be helpful for our audience.
Sure, yeah. And again, saying this isn't easy, right? There's a lot of pressure. And when there's a lot of pressure, just from a body perspective and from a nervous system perspective, we go kind of into fight or flight mode. We think, we tense up, we aren't able to think as clearly. So I think a big, when we are stressed, I think a big, and that's what causes too a lot of the transactional, like you're talking about an audit fixed fee, you've got your senior, you've got your manager, partner, get it done, right? And then, we all tense up. So I think it can start with us, and it's kind of coming back into our bodies and just really small, simple things. Taking a deep breath, focusing on extending the exhale longer than the inhale. That triggers your rest and digest system. It lets you know that you're okay. Also, taking a walk outside, just a little walk. Just feeling nature. There's a lot we don't know about the brain, but we're learning a lot. And we do know, empirical studies are showing time outside, this breathing that I'm talking about. Something from a shifting mind perspective is just trying to think about something, you're grateful for. And also something you're grateful for about your job. And being in accounting can be really hard. There are a lot of amazing things about it, but the cross-functional relationships and all that stuff, it can be challenging. But there are a lot of cool things about it. So that's kind of with yourself, and then with others, just taking that time to take a step back, really simply, and be like, yeah, this is another person. Like, who are they? Kind of get curious. What's important to them? And
right.
that's
They're not
actually,
just a PBC provider, they're
right?
a real person.
Right. And accountants are real people too. I mean, accountants are some of the most interesting people, right? And so all the dimension, and you see things in someone's cube, or and authentically, not just to make conversation, but if you see something that you're like, hey, because we feel it when it's real.
Yeah, I love it. And I'm going to try to summarize, but there's so much rich information there. I'm going to do my best to summarize here. But the very first point that I heard in that response, Tara, was we are in accounting, and we are going to be in an environment where we're going to have deadlines, and there's likely to be pressures with deadlines and so on. And accepting that and knowing how to deal with it, I think, is an important start to kind of developing that part. And you shared some really good tips, just taking a walk outside, longer exhales. And then the last point about just knowing that the person that you're partnering with is a real person, and just recognizing it. I think this is all great advice for, everyone, whether you're an individual contributor all the way to leaders. And yeah, I think we tend to, as accountants, get ourselves, I know a lot of accountants that I work with, very loyal, gotta get these deadlines done. But that shouldn't be a reason why you can't have heart and be human. That should never be an excuse for that.
And that's the manager's responsibility to remind our folks, right? Because we aren't always going to get it from the outside, right? We don't get a lot of, deficiencies, material weaknesses, audit, it's so the managers, giving that, wow, great job.
Absolutely. Yeah. Leaders have to take ownership of creating that type of environment. So managers should be actively and proactively engaging their teams to keep these important concepts in mind. So that's a great parting advice, Tara. Thank you again for joining us today. I'm sure we can continue on with other ancillary topics around this, and I would love to, if you're open to it, have you back for another episode on that. But I think this was a wonderful episode, and I think it is going to be very insightful for our audience.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for stopping by. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you want more information, please check us out at gapify.com, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.